Good evening. December 11th may go down as the day of the biggest robbery in our country's history.
Surrounding one of the biggest cash heists in American history.
I got 2 years here and I'm dying to get home.
In 1978, a mafia gang carried out the biggest cash robbery in U.S. history at the time. The leader behind this heist was a man named Jimmy Burke, one of the most notorious and powerful mafia figures. They used to call him Jimmy the Gent, even though he was extremely violent and ruthless. And we'll soon find out why this contradiction existed. Jimmy formed a crew and led them in executing a massive robbery at New York's JFK Airport. The operation wasn't easy at all. They faced many challenges. But their plan was airtight, and the loot they got far exceeded all expectations. What's crazy, though, is that what happened after the robbery was even more insane than the heist itself. This is one of the most intense mafia stories, full of action and wild twists you'd never expect. So sit back and enjoy. Many of you probably know the movie Goodfellas. It's about real mafia characters, and most of them were based on true people. Today, we're focusing on those exact characters, specifically these three men. Jimmy Burke, we'll call him the leader since he led the heist. Tommy DeSimone, we'll call him the maniac because he was truly insane and a killer. Henry Hill, we'll call him the hustler because he worked his way up from nothing. We'll use these nicknames to remember and distinguish them because this story has a lot of characters. Now, the Goodfellas film made these men famous, but it didn't go into detail about the heist we're covering today. It mentioned it briefly in passing, even though it was a major event. That's because the movie focused more on the characters' lives and the drama between them. In our version, while we'll touch on their backgrounds a bit, because mafia lives are always wild, the main focus will be the heist itself, with all its gritty details. I'll be mixing it up to give you something fresh and engaging. Even though these three were close friends, only two of them actually participated in the heist, Jimmy the leader and Tommy the maniac. Henry the hustler didn't join, and we'll explain why later, but he still played a major role in their lives, so he needs to be part of the story. From the age of 13, Henry Hill started getting involved with the mafia, even though his family had no direct ties to them. At first, he did basic tasks like running errands and parking their luxury Cadillacs. He was basically their little servant for a small paycheck. But he loved it. He was fascinated by the mafia, looked up to them, and dreamed of becoming one of them. To him, they lived the ultimate life, respected, feared, wealthy, and powerful. So, he didn't mind being a lackey, because he knew in the mafia world, you rise slowly. Tasks grow over time, and one day, you become a true mobster. He started skipping school and spending all his time with these men, believing that this was his real future. The man Henry admired most was Paul Vario, the mafia boss of East New York. Paul was a high-ranking leader in the Lucchese family, one of the 5 major Italian mafia families in New York. These 5 families, Bonanno, Colombo, Gambino, Genovese, and Lucchese, controlled the organized crime world. Paul Vario was a capo, captain, in the Lucchese family, ranking just below the underboss and the boss himself. Henry idolized him and wanted to be like him. Over time, Henry took on more dangerous tasks, intimidation jobs, violent actions, even destruction, and began gaining the respect and wealth he'd always wanted. People feared him even though he was still a teenager. When he'd walk into a bakery, he didn't need to wait. The owner would come to him. People literally helped his mom carry groceries home just because she was his mother. By age 13 or 14, Henry was earning more than his father and most adults around him. Around this time, Henry met Jimmy Burke, the man we mentioned earlier. Jimmy was highly respected in the mafia world, but surprisingly, he wasn't an official member of the Lucchese family, not even a made man. Why? Simply because he wasn't pure Italian. That was a requirement. Both parents had to be of full Italian descent. That's why official members were few, around 100 to 150 per family, while the lower-ranked soldiers numbered in the thousands. Jimmy could never become a full member due to his bloodline, but he was still a legend. Despite this, Jimmy had the power of a captain. He led operations, formed teams, and was feared by all. He was a cold-blooded enforcer who completed assassinations for the Mafia, starting at age 16. He was experienced in everything: murder, extortion, intimidation, kidnapping, you name it. But his favorite thing in the world? Robbery. Jimmy loved stealing, and that's what would eventually lead to the legendary heist at the center of this story. Most of his robberies were of cargo trucks, liquor trucks, cigarette trucks, seafood trucks, anything of value. He even had relationships with the truck drivers themselves, who would tip him off about valuable shipments. In return, he paid them a cut. Even the police were in his pocket. They got their bribes and acted like his partners. Jimmy took Henry under his wing and introduced him to another boy his age, Tommy. From that day, Jimmy told them they'd be working together. This young Tommy was none other than Tommy DeSimone, the maniac we mentioned earlier, and you'll soon understand why that name fits him so well. Together, Henry and Tommy grew up in the Mafia world under Jimmy's protection. The three became extremely close. Now, the JFK Airport, located in their territory in East New York, was one of the busiest airports in America. It handled massive shipments of cargo every day, making it a prime Mafia target. They didn't usually hit the airport directly, but rather the trucks leaving it. Their Mafia boss, Paul Vario, had men, relatives, and connections working in every section of the airport. These workers tipped the Mafia off about every valuable shipment coming in or out. If the Mafia needed money, they'd simply hit one of those trucks. And like we said, even the truck drivers cooperated. If a driver refused or tried to resist, he'd get beaten down. It was in their interest to go along with it. That's where the Mafia made most of their money, from cargo robberies, in addition to other violent rackets like extorting shady business owners, forcing them to pay protection money. And if they didn't pay, they'd get beat, or worse, until they did. Now, let's talk about Tommy DeSimone, the maniac. In films and series, he's portrayed as short-tempered and dangerous, someone who could flip out and become violently unpredictable over the smallest slight. If you said the wrong word, even by accident, he might punch you or pull a gun. They also called him Tommy Two Guns because he always carried two pistols. In one incident, a young guy didn't bring him his drink during a meeting, which Tommy took as disrespect. After a shouting match, Tommy shot the kid in the leg. When the boy cursed him in return, Tommy shot him in the chest and killed him on the spot. And the crazy part? A real Mafia associate who was close to Tommy and involved in the heist we're covering said the real Tommy was actually worse than what the movie showed. He was far more violent and unstable in real life. So if you've seen the movie Goodfellas, you've seen how they portrayed Tommy as a crazy psychopath. But now, his real-life friend says the way they portrayed him in the movie was nothing. In real life, Tommy was even crazier, more violent, and more of a killer than the movie showed. One important incident we should mention about Tommy is what happened between him and a made man from the Mafia. This man's name was William Bentvena. He had been in prison for 6 years, and when he got out, they threw him a party to celebrate his release. This guy, William, was an official member of the Gambino family, one of the 5 families of the Mafia. Just as a reminder, being a made man means you have a high rank in the Mafia world. And as we said before, you can't become a made man unless you're of pure Italian blood and have a proven record as a mobster. Now, what happened is that William and Tommy had known each other from back when Tommy was just a kid. When Tommy was young, he used to shine mobsters' shoes, just like Henry's story in the movie, where he worked as a helper before rising to become a mobster himself. Tommy had a similar beginning. So when William saw Tommy at the party, he said loudly in front of everyone, "Hey, how are you, best shoe shiner? Why don't you go get your box and shine my shoes?" Of course, Tommy snapped, and took it as a big insult. He got into an argument with William, and they started cursing at each other. Henry managed to calm Tommy down and stop him from escalating the situation. But right then, Tommy whispered in Henry's ear, "I'm gonna kill that guy." Now, killing a made man from a mafia family is a major taboo, no matter the reason. It's absolutely forbidden, especially if you're not a made man yourself. If a made man touches another made man, it might be negotiated, but if a lower rank mobster lays a hand on a made man, it's a cardinal sin in the mafia world. But Tommy was crazy, and 2 weeks after that incident, he ambushed William and beat him severely. Jimmy and Henry helped him. Now, once they attacked him, they had to finish the job. There was no going back. They kept beating him until he died. Then they wrapped his body in tablecloths and threw it in the car trunk and drove to a remote location to bury him. But on the way, they heard banging sounds coming from the trunk. When they stopped and opened it, they found the man was still alive and barely breathing. So Tommy took out a knife and stabbed him multiple times until he was sure he was dead. Then they dug a hole with a shovel and a bulldozer, threw his body in, and buried him. So now we've gotten a good picture of the lives of these three, Jimmy, Tommy, and Henry. And now we can move on to the major heists they committed. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for part 2. It'll be dropping as soon as possible. I'm trying my hardest to make a good story to entertain you guys, and I'd wish from you to help at my start so I can keep going, and I will try my hardest to make the best stories for you. So please drop a like and subscribe. Really appreciate your support. Thank you guys.